Finally, Jack Nicholson. He turned 89 this week. Nicholson, a three-time Oscar winner, doesn't make many public appearances these days.
And man, he might be the best of all time.
Yeah.
The world's greatest movie star didn't die. He didn't suffer a public scandal. He didn't retire with fanfare or give a final interview. Instead, Jack Nicholson simply walked away. For 15 years, one of cinema's most magnetic figures disappeared behind the gates of a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. And almost nobody outside his immediate family knew the real reason why. The story of his vanishing is not a mystery of tragedy or illness. At least not entirely. It's something more complex. A story about a man who built a legendary career on the power of his presence, and then made the ultimate artistic choice by removing that presence entirely from public view. To understand how the biggest star in Hollywood could vanish completely, we have to start at the beginning, with the foundation that shaped everything that came after. Jack Nicholson's life began with a secret so profound that it would take him 37 years to discover it. In April 1937, a young unmarried woman named June Nicholson traveled from Neptune, New Jersey to New York City to give birth in secrecy. The father was married to someone else, and in that era, such a scandal would have destroyed the family's reputation in their small town. June's mother, Ethel May, made a decision that would ripple through generations. She claimed the baby as her own son, while June became known as his older sister. The boy who would become Jack Nicholson grew up believing his grandmother was his mother and his actual mother was his sister. Nobody corrected this fiction. The official documents supported the lie. This wasn't neglect or cruelty in the traditional sense. It was an attempt to protect the family from shame. But what it created was a childhood built entirely on displacement and silence. The household was broken in ways that had nothing to do with divorce or abandonment, but rather with profound alienation built into the very structure of daily life. The man Jack thought was his father was actually his grandfather, a department store window dresser named John Joseph Nicholson. Ethel May worked as a hairdresser. Neither of them had been raised by their biological parents either. The whole family existed in a state of fractured identity, and young Jack absorbed this atmosphere of secrets and emotional distance before he was old enough to understand what he was absorbing. The effect was subtle but permanent. He learned early that the world you show people is not the world that actually exists, and that the most important truths are the ones nobody speaks about. Then came 1974. Jack Nicholson was already a famous actor when a researcher from Time magazine called him to verify facts for a cover story. The researcher casually mentioned that the woman he thought was his mother was actually his grandmother, and the woman he thought was his sister was his biological mother. By then, both women were dead, June from cancer in 1963 and Ethel May in 1970. The people who could have explained the lie, who could have given context to the deception, had been taken from him without ever revealing the truth. Jack's response to this revelation was remarkably composed. He said it was dramatic but not traumatizing, since he was already psychologically formed. But the scars were there, written into his behavior in ways he probably didn't fully recognize. He never married. He had children with different women, but kept his romantic life deliberately chaotic and distant. The boy who grew up inside a secret became a man who kept the world at arm's length, controlling access to his inner life with the precision of a master craftsman. His rise to stardom was almost accidental. In the 1950s, Nicholson worked as an errand boy at an animation studio, carrying mail and fetching coffee. When offered a promotion that would have been a pay cut, he declined and drifted toward acting instead. His early years in Hollywood were marked by obscurity and failure. He appeared in roughly 15 films with almost no recognition. He started writing screenplays not because he dreamed of being a screenwriter, but because nobody was offering him decent roles. The turn came with Easy Rider in 1969, a role that came his way only because another actor had walked out after a conflict with the director. That accident of casting changed everything. Suddenly, Nicholson was famous, and once he was famous, the doors opened to an extraordinary run of performances. What followed was perhaps the most concentrated period of great acting in American cinema. 5 easy pieces. Chinatown. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which won him his first Oscar. The Shining, still regarded as one of the greatest films ever made. Terms of Endearment, which won him a second Oscar. Batman, where he negotiated a profit-sharing deal that reportedly earned him between $60 and $90 million. A Few Good Men, As Good as It Gets, which won his third Oscar. By the year 2000, Jack Nicholson wasn't just a movie star. He was an institution. He was the face of a particular kind of dangerous masculinity, intelligent, unpredictable, capable of both seduction and menace. The industry organized itself around him. Directors wanted to work with him. Studios would restructure projects to accommodate him. He had transcended acting and become a monument. But beneath the public triumph, something was shifting. In his final extended interview with the press, given to Vanity Fair in 2013, Nicholson said something that revealed how much his internal landscape had changed. He admitted he was no longer driven to be out in the world. He said he only wanted to do films that dealt with real emotion and moved people. And then he confessed something that might have been the truest thing he'd ever said publicly. He no longer had the energy to both work and maintain the kind of social life that had once defined him. During his last few movies, he said, he hardly left the hotel at night. For a man whose off-screen life had been as legendary as his on-screen work, this was a seismic shift. The engine that had powered his public existence was slowing down. But it wasn't just his own energy that was fading. His romantic life, which had been as dramatic and consequential as his film career, was also reaching its end. He had been involved with Angelica Houston for 17 years in one of Hollywood's most celebrated relationships. When it ended brutally. Nicholson told her over dinner that another woman was going to have his baby. Houston, who had struggled with her own fertility issues, understood immediately what this meant. She told him there was only room for one woman in his life, and she was leaving. One conversation ended 17 years. That other woman, Rebecca Broussard, gave him 2 children, Lorraine and Ray, but that relationship also unraveled. By the time Nicholson entered his late 60s, he was tired. The appetite for conquest and chaos that had defined his life was gone. He was still working, but there was no passion behind it. His last film, How Do You Know?, came out in December 2010. It was a romantic comedy that lost roughly $70 million at the box office. Nicholson never made another film after that. He didn't announce a retirement. He didn't give a farewell interview. He simply stopped. And once he stopped almost everything else. The rumors started immediately. In 2013, tabloid outlets reported that he had stepped away because of memory loss, claiming he could no longer remember lines. People close to him pushed back, insisting there was no dementia or memory illness, that he was still reading scripts and considering projects. But nothing ever materialized. There was a brief moment in 2017 when he seemed attached to an American remake of a German film called Tony Erdmann, and it looked like a genuine comeback might happen. Then he dropped out and the production collapsed. What was actually happening behind those gates on Mulholland Drive became increasingly mysterious as the years accumulated. Reports from 2021 and 2022 described a man who rarely left his property. He was physically stable, sources said, but his world had contracted dramatically. His children, Lorraine and Ray, became his primary caretakers and companions. Ray, who has built his own career as an actor and appeared in films like Smile 2, has spoken about his father with both love and clarity. He said they were very different people, that the pressures and concerns that affected one didn't necessarily affect the other. But he also said that eating dinner with his father every night growing up was how he learned to be human. That's the image of the real Jack Nicholson, not the legend, but a father at the dinner table, passing something crucial to his son without needing to speak about it. Then came February 2025. For the first time in years, Jack Nicholson appeared in public. The occasion was the 50th anniversary special of Saturday Night Live, broadcast from Studio 8H in New York. Wearing a dark jacket, tinted glasses, and a New York Yankees beret, 87-year-old Nicholson leaned forward from the audience and introduced the next performer with 5 words, "Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Sandler." The room erupted. His appearance was shocking not because he looked terrible or infirm. Fans said he still looked good for his age, but because he had simply vanished from public view so completely that seeing him anywhere felt like a ghost making an appearance. His daughter Lorraine sat beside him. Photographers captured him the next day leaving the Carlisle Hotel, walking with a cane. There was a 45-year gap between the man in the beret and the man who had terrorized Shelley Duvall through the corridors of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. But what mattered about that moment was what it represented. Nicholson had never hosted Saturday Night Live in his entire career, even at the height of his fame. He had appeared at the 40th anniversary special in 2015 and later said he regretted never hosting the show. So when he showed up for the 50th anniversary, not on stage, but in the audience, it carried a weight beyond celebrity gossip. This was a man acknowledging the end of something, not with a speech or a manifesto or a final interview, but with 5 words and the applause of a room full of people who understood what they were witnessing. It wasn't a comeback. It was a goodbye disguised as a cameo. In July 2025, his friend of more than 50 years, Danny DeVito, gave an update to People magazine that suggested Jack was still there, still present, still the person his close circle knew. DeVito said he had seen Jack around his birthday just a couple of weeks before the interview, and that he was great. Their friendship, stretching back to the early 1970s, appeared to be one of the few threads still connecting Nicholson to the outside world. DeVito checks in. The children are present. The house still stands. The truth about why Jack Nicholson really disappeared is not a single answer, but a convergence of factors that all arrived at the same time and reinforced each other. His body slowed down. The energy that once powered the wildest life in Hollywood diminished, just as he himself said in that 2013 interview. His appetite for the work changed. He still read scripts, but nothing moved him enough to endure the physical and emotional cost of actually making a film. The industry itself transformed into something that had no real place for him. Franchises, digital effects, the kind of raw, dangerous, improvisational presence that had made him legendary was no longer what studios wanted. The relationships that had once kept him tethered to public life ended one by one, until only family and a handful of old friends remained. But the deepest explanation came from his own inner circle. According to a source who spoke to the New York Post, Jack and the people around him preferred that people remember him as he was. That's not the statement of a man in crisis. That's the statement of a man making a choice. Jack Nicholson did not lose Hollywood. He let it go. And in doing so, he did something almost no star of his magnitude has ever managed. He left on his own terms, without announcement, without ceremony, without giving the public the satisfaction of a final bow. He simply stopped. The man who gave the world 4 decades of performances understood something fundamental about endings. Sometimes the greatest final act is no act at all. Like, subscribe, and follow for more.